Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Wait a Second, I Forgot About Cal!
It's terrible here. It's terrible in heck.
Oh no, he's still stuck in hell with the Damon!
I just wanted to get my mixtape out there. My hip hop mixtape.
Hi everyone, Cut the Knee Down Echo here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Faith No More record, Soul Invictus. Faith No More, famed alternative metal band, numerous fantastic albums under their belt, and this is their comeback record. If you didn't know, the band is fronted by vocalist extraordinaire Mr. Mike Patton, who has become known for a slew of collaborations and solo albums and side projects since Faith No More disbanded, some of which have been incredibly out there, experimental, but Faith No More comes from humbler beginnings. The band's earlier breakout records featured fantastically written blends of hard rock and metal, rap, and even funk. However, once these records dropped, it didn't take the band too long to start experimenting with other sounds, other styles of music, the kind of zaniness I might expect out of a Mike Patton solo or side project, but the band still, throughout their career, stayed pretty in touch with their alt metal roots. And alternative metal is actually something I think Faith No More embodied more than any other band for their time. I mean, when alt metal and nu metal sort of caught on in the mainstream, Faith No More was a band that continued to experiment and try new things, while a lot of the sounds they helped popularize in the late 80s, early 90s became trendy. However, I wouldn't really say that risk-taking continues on this new LP over here. With Soul Invictus, Faith No More actually kind of takes off from where they left with their last LP, which, I mean, you know, we're talking about almost 2 decades of popular music evolution since then. Hardly cutting edge at this point, but the band is still kind of carrying that alt metal torch on this LP, so if you're kind of nostalgic for that flavor, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess another thing that might impact your enjoyment of this album is whether or not you felt that Faith No More's last few LPs were kind of a high point in their career. Personally, I kind of prefer the hard rock directness of their early stuff, but as flamboyant as this album can be sometimes, it is a short 10 tracks and 39 minutes. Obviously, Faith No More is not looking to overstay their comeback with this LP. And for at least a handful of tracks here, Faith No More does a pretty decent job of bringing back that heavy, dramatic, vocally acrobatic alt metal that they're kind of known for, like on the track Superhero. I love the barked vocals on this song, as well as the plucky Middle Eastern melodies hanging in the background on the chorus, and the vocals on the chorus here are great too. Leader of men. Completely badass song with a lyrical meaning that can be derived from it. Just everything I would want in a Faith No More track. And then with Sunny Side Up. Huge, hulking melody on the chorus here too. I love the way Patton's vocals soar over the riffs on this track and many a track in Faith No More's back catalog. And I love the way the chorus here kind of smashes into these hard downstroked guitars, and there's a sudden shift into just lighter, funky guitar chords with some very finely tuned vocal harmonies layered on top of one another on this track. There's something with maybe this kind of new age of production. Faith No More has been able to, I don't know, maybe reach a new level of finesse. Something a Faith No More record might typically forego in order to just get to more just balls to the wall rock music with a little eccentricity and some big vocals. And while this change of pace isn't necessarily a bad thing, it leads to a lot more just theatrical camp on this record, which you might typically expect more in a Mike Patton solo or side project. So you are really getting that drama, those overacted vocals on a number of tracks here, like on Matador, the longest track on the entire LP, or Black Friday, which kicks off with some pretty awful lyrics, and then Cone of Shame, which has a bit of a, I don't know, a reverby, spaghetti western, very open, vast, and dramatic Nick Cave type thing before the really hard-hitting riffs kick in the second half. And these tracks aren't terrible, but they're not really amazing me either. They just kind of feel like, in a way, lesser versions of tracks that I might have heard Mike Patton kind of toy with on a number of other albums with other bands. And then back to Sunny Side Up. I guess the one thing I don't really like about this track is that it kind of ends very suddenly. It's one of the shorter tracks in the track listing here, and it's not the only song that kind of leaves us with a sudden cliffhanger. There is the opener here, which fizzles out so disappointingly, I wonder why they even bothered to put it on the record. And then there's the song Motherfucker, which I reviewed, and I talked about how much I liked this track and how much it felt kind of like a trailer or a cliffhanger for this album. And I thought it might make an amazing intro for this record. But it's actually track 8 in the track listing here and doesn't really flow into the next song all that well. It's just kind of another cliffhanger in the middle of this album, and, just kind of a perplexing placement in the track listing. I don't really mind that this record is just 10 tracks long after all of these years, whatever. But at least deliver a series of songs that feel like they're actually developed and fleshed out, and that they were kind of, hammered out and thought about in the studio. There are other more direct and hard-hitting tracks in the track listing here, like Separation Anxiety and Rise of the Fall, that I do enjoy, but not much else on this record sort of strikes me as a highlight. It seems like Faith No More still have their sound, and they can still sort of bring that aura that you might expect from a Faith No More song, and performance-wise, I feel like these tracks are there, but a lot of them are just really underwritten. Either that, or they're kind of dabbling in these dramatic bells and whistles on a record that already has a pretty short time frame. Songs that are kind of taking away potential runtime for another track like Superhero. So, this is just really another pretty underwhelming return from a band who, had quite a bit of popularity in the 90s, and now, sort of due time for that comeback, and, the results just... Soul Invictus is mostly likable. Faith No More didn't totally miss the mark. I could see fans liking it, but I don't know. Just not a lot of this record sort of struck me as significant, really. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this thing. Transition. If you've given this record a listen, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Faith No More, Soul Invictus, forever.